Hello, everyone. You are listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. I am Jordan Hall, and as always, I am joined by the wonderful Brooke Destra. And Brooke, the Flyers snapped a 3-game skid with one of their best games of the season. It sure looked like a complete effort from them. I can't really think of a win that was more complete that they've had. We all know they've played a ton of close games, a lot in overtime. Some games have gone to the shootout. This one, some.
You're being generous.
This one was really wire to wire for the Flyers. Was it one of the best performances you've seen from this team, Brooke, so far?
Yeah, I'd say from top to bottom. I mean, just in terms of contribution, it was one of the most complete games. It also ended in regulation, so I'm going to throw a party every single time that happens this season, apparently. And you can obviously counter this, well, yeah, it should have been that kind of game. It was Columbus. It was the Blue Jackets. But you know what? We said this toward the end of last season when the Flyers were still pushing for a playoff spot. You know, they have a game against Columbus. This is a really great chance to stop the skid. And they got blown out at home against the Blue Jackets. Mm-hmm. So I think it was a necessary win in terms of being able to kind of squash how this past week has played out, and really something great to build off of.
I agree. I think stress-free wins can really help a team. I think it can really help a goalie. They made life easy on Samuel Ersson last night. And that was just his second game back from that lower body injury. I think that was great for him. He didn't have to see a ton of action. He builds a little confidence. Doesn't feel like he had to make a save every single shot. They gave him an early lead. They built on it. I think it was a very good win for the Flyers. It was needed. And Brooke,
it was fun.
And it was a fun game. And the NHL's the NHL. Like, every team can beat anyone. The Blue Jackets had almost an identical record to the Flyers going into that game. So that, the Flyers are in no position to be like, well, we beat the Blue Jackets. I'm sure they're not feeling that at all. They're happy with a complete effort.
Feeling that way. I don't know if they were, but I mean, like, you have that conversation. Continue.
Yes. No, but so a win's a win. The fact that they were able to do it in such convincing fashion, I think, is a real promising thing. The fact that they're in games is great, but all the overtimes and all the down-to-the-wire games, after a while, that can probably be taxing mentally and physically.
Yeah.
The fact that they could get it in this kind of fashion, I think, was real good.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't think that at any point they really were coasting in the third period. I think that, from the start of the game, they controlled all 3 periods by a mile. Mm-hmm. But it's nice that they had that leeway where even though, they had that Columbus scored that one goal in the third period, and you're like, oh no, it's clock's winding down. There's nothing that Columbus is going to do after that. The game was secured, and it was a nice change of pace to the wins that we've had that lead up to the very last second. Yeah. So it was great. It was fun. And like I said, I think it's something that they're really going to build off of.
Yeah, the final score was 5-3, but because you mentioned they got a goal in like the final minute, it was 5-1 over halfway through the third period. Mm-hmm. So this game was definitely done and over with. The Flyers really controlled it from start to finish. And one guy that keeps on going, Brooke, is Matvei Michkov. He's now a point-per-game player. 27 points in 27 games. He's on a 5-game point streak. That's the longest of his career so far.
He's leading all rookies.
In scoring. Just turned 20 on Monday. Just how impressive has this kid been? Is he still opening your eyes?
It's funny because I watched him snag the assist on the Frost goal last night. Where he stuck with it and then he buried his own rebound. But I always knew that the scoring was going to come for Michkov, but I was so excited to see him just be an assist machine. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that was one aspect of his game that was so downplayed going into this. I mean, it took so many players that he, was on a line with the beginning of the year, Konechny especially. Michkov could have 6 or 7 more points right now with assists, but all of his line mates had to adjust to just being able to how quickly he can adapt and anticipate play. And he's thinking 5 steps ahead when everyone else on the ice is thinking 2. And it's so refreshing to see that. So yeah, you're getting so many of these elements of surprise, and it's still so early in his career to keep being surprised. And it's just, a launch pad for him. But Jordan, I also wanted to talk about really quick the moment that we saw near the end of the game earlier in the week where he got tossed from the game and he is walking off the ice. There's like 16 seconds left in the game and he stops to sign a fan's water bottle. And it was probably my favorite moment that we've seen of him this whole season. And I know it's an off-ice moment, but I mean, this kid, I mean, he's 20 now. He's still a kid. It's fine. He's got all of these pieces to be this superstar, not only for the Flyers, not only in Philadelphia, but for the NHL, for anybody who follows sports. Like, he has this aura and star quality so early in his career. And it just, those moments add on to it so much, because then you see his play and you're like, oh man, I can't even not root for him. That if you're an opposing fan, because he's so good and he's catering to the fans in a way that Flyers fans deserve and they have been waiting for such a long time. So, I mean, left and right, I keep getting surprised with Michkov, but it's also not surprising that he keeps pulling new like rabbits out of his hat. So
I know we're watching that moment on the Jumbotron. The camera in the arena at the Wells Fargo Center was on Michkov, and he's walking off. He just obviously got the game misconduct and got blood on his chin from the scuffle. And all of a sudden he stops in the tunnel and we're like, did the fan say something to him? And nope, he's signing an autograph for a fan. And the whole arena noticed
from
it.
The game.
The whole arena noticed it and they loved it. You could tell they ate it up, and it was very cool. It was kind of like, yeah, this kid gets it. Like almost like a Star Was Born type of thing. And it's been cool to see him embrace the fans. Obviously, it's a young man from Russia who is still learning the language, and like there's been no hiccups there in terms of like he really loves the fans. The fans love him.
Well, hockey is a universal language.
Yes, yeah, and it's a great point.
So and I think sports in general it's why so many people are able to connect in so many different, aspects around the world, where Flyers fans for years have just wanted players you can really root for and back 150%. And we've had so many great guys come through this city year in and year out, but from the beginning of his career to be making such an impact, the first half of his first NHL season is just, it's so incredible to watch. And I just like Philly has a gem, and every other team that picked before 7 in the draft last year is going to look back for years to come and be like, oh man, we messed up. The Flyers finally got a steal of the draft. And it's still early. Like, sure, there can be debates and conversations about this for years down the line, but it's nice that the Flyers finally have that, where they're like, oh man, the Flyers really got the steal.
Yeah.
I feel like it's been a really long time since that has happened.
Yeah, they probably have been due for some luck in the draft in terms of hitting on a player when they take a risk. So, and it's been fun with Michkov and the fans. Like the past couple games, I've noticed him throwing pucks to fans in his jersey. One guy had a Michkov Sochi jersey from his KHL team, and Michkov, of course, probably spotted it right away. It's totally different colors than a Flyers jersey. Gave it to the guy, and then the guy gave it to a kid for the puck. And then the other day in warmups, there was a Michkov jersey, and the kid was wearing it backwards. So Michkov was like plastered on the glass.
Amazing.
And of course, Michkov saw it and tossed him a puck. And I thought it was a nice little move by that kid to reverse the jersey to make sure he saw it. But
I love that. I mean, I'm going back to even, man, the first few preseason games at home. I was blown away by the number of people who already had Michkov jerseys. He never played a professional hockey game in the NHL yet, and people already had his jersey. I think it's really telling, and people want something to root for so badly, and every single day Michkov is giving them a reason. So it's so fun. Yeah. It's so refreshing that there's always, no matter what, there's always some good that we have right now, and that is our rookie of the season, or one of our rookies. I don't know. So many good things.
Yes,
so many good things.
A lot of good things. And I think probably the biggest victory for Michkov is he's gaining the trust of John Tortorella. His defensive game has gotten better. And that was obviously the gripe early on. It's probably why he sat for a couple games. There were some differences between the coach and the player about play away from the puck. And he has picked it up. He has a plus 13 over his last 14 games. So this guy is not just a scorer and then hurt you defensively kind of player. He has been much better away from the puck. I think the Flyers have been very pleased. We've talked to Rocky Thompson. We've talked to Brad Shaw, the assistant coaches, and John Tortorella himself has also praised him for his play away from the puck. So the fact that he's picking it up with the language barrier and everything, coming from the KHL to the NHL and the differences in style of play, I think that's a huge, huge positive, maybe even more of a positive than his scoring, because Tortorella wants to keep him out there because of his offensive talent. But in order to play later in games, the coach needs to trust the player the full length of the rink. And I think he's starting to get that trust. And to me, that is huge, Brooke. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, again, like we had this conversation earlier and we were like, okay, his minutes are getting restricted. Tortorella's shortening his bench later in games. And then it led up to that ultimate, Michkov sitting a handful of games. And I'm like, all right, not what I personally would have done, but it's one of those things where you sit back and you're like, okay, you can't question Tortorella because it worked.
Yes,
and I've
worked,
said this every single time. You can pull up receipts from every single podcast I've ever said with Torts. There's a method to his madness, and whether you agree with it or not, it still works. So until there is some sort of, complete falling out, like crazy out of left field pocket kind of thing, let Tortorella do what he's got to do. And it's really, I don't know, like collectively, it's so enjoyable where it's, they're finding this mutual respect. And it was very similar to almost, I mean, it's a completely different relationship with like Tortorella and Sanheim. Like Sanheim had to work so hard to gain that respect of his head coach. And Tortorella now realize like they have this like mutual respect for one another as coach and player because of the work that Sanheim puts in. And I think that it's just something that Michkov recognized so quickly. Like, how can I adapt and make this work for my coach? And how can I help my team and make these adjustments? And I mean, again, he's just ticking all of these boxes so much sooner than I think people had anticipated. So across the board, I mean, really, like Jordan, I'm so thrilled.
I know. I'm
sure. Thrilled.
I'm not sure anyone could have asked for more from Michkov at this point. What would you ask more from? Maybe to never sit a game. He sat a couple games. Could he be more than a point per game player? Honestly,
I don't know. I was really looking forward to that first hat trick in Boston.
There we go. Yeah, maybe a hat trick.
So like, come on, one more goal, dude. No,
yeah, he has very much been as advertised, if not better. And Brooke, he's not the only young forward that's playing pretty well.
Yeah.
We wanted to highlight Joel Farabee and Owen Tippett. Those are two still young forwards. Farabee 24, Tippett 25. And I think we know how important they are to the Flyers' success. When they're playing well and they're starting to score, the Flyers are a different team. Farabee has kind of pieced things together a little bit here. He's played really well in the top line, even if he isn't scoring all the time. And Tippett looks like he's going on a heater right now. Just what have you thought of those two?
Thank God, first of all, because when you have some of these younger guys and they're all cold at the same time, you're like, oh man, this is going to be brutal. So we've kind of, pegged Tippett as one of the streakier guys on the team, but when he's hot, he's hot. I always joke that he's like a JVR, really, in a sense of, when he's on it, and when he's cold, it's very chilly over here. But it's great that right now both Farabee and Tippett are figuring things out kind of simultaneously, because it doesn't matter what line is being tossed out right now, you're feeling pretty confident that these guys are going to generate offensive chances. And that's really all you can ask for in the aggression in the offensive zone. So
yeah, it's huge. And Farabee, I think we saw it coming. If you look at his game log, his shot volume was very good over the last 10 or so games, and he just couldn't get a goal to go. And that happens at times. I think we knew it was going to come. And I think what is the most positive about him on the top line is he's a very good complementary player. I think he complements players like Konechny and Couturier very well. He's not going to hurt the Flyers. He'll be real steady. And I would like to see him stick on that line. I think the Flyers finally have some chemistry up front. They have been moving their lines around so much. Part of that was because they started 1-5-1, and that happens. But you're finally seeing lines stay together, and I think it's helping guys. And Brooke, you're right. Tippett is a streaky scorer. He might always be a streaky scorer. That might be something that he's going to have his whole career. But when he's on a run like this, 5 goals in 5 games, I mean, he is good. He's a difference maker, and I think you want to see Tippett ride it as long as he can.
Yeah, I think he really rides the confidence wave,
Yeah.
and as soon as something is a little crushing, he has to work to build it up again. And I think we're just at that one stride right now where he's just really owning it. He's feeling good every single shift. And yeah, it's a great situation for the Flyers to be in right now. I'm still thinking about Farabee setting up Konechny for his second goal of the night last night. I mean, just crazy good awareness. It's just it's confidence for so many of these younger players on the team, and when they have it, it's so apparent. So I hope it's something that continues to build right now. And like I said, with such a convincing complete win in Columbus, it's something that they can definitely build off of.
Yeah, and they need secondary scoring. They can't, I think, totally rely on Konechny and Michkov to do it all. That's just not going to be the way they're going to win consistently. When they have guys like Cates, Tippett, Farabee, Frost chipping in, they are a much, much different team. And I think the positive with Tippett, too, is that it's kind of coincided with Morgan Frost playing well.
Yeah.
They're on the same line with Michkov, and I think we've seen a lot of positives offensively from that line. And getting Frost going, I think, is just as important as getting some of the other guys going. And, Brooke, what have you thought about Jimmy Drysdale? I think his 2 games back from injury have been very, very promising. He was a guy that I think undeniably disappointed a little bit before getting hurt.
Yeah.
He wasn't putting up the offense. He was struggling a little bit defensively. And in these 2 games back, he just looks dynamic. He looks like he's up the ice. He looks like he's confident. What have you seen from him?
I mean, it's very promising. Again, like it's just the importance of having all of these younger guys contributing consistently is the key to this team finding any kind of success. But Drysdale's injury history has been the biggest question mark with how we think things are going to play out with him in Philly, if he's going to pan out and be, possibly a top 2 pair defenseman later down in his career. I think I was pleasantly surprised in, what was it, Tuesday? What is the day? Was it Monday?
Today is Wednesday.
When did they play Utah? Sunday. I know
Sunday
the days
night.
of the week. My goodness.
We've all been there.
Everything blends.
Yes,
it's fine.
all the games.
But I was pleasantly surprised with that, and him just being able to come right back in Columbus and it be kind of pretty much the same level of production. And you see him being aggressive and breaking up passes and being so just, he's changing the game. Like he's not blending in, like he's being able to break things up. And it's good. Like, I know that it sounds so lame to just sometimes be so blatant in a response, but it's good. It's a relief to see these guys doing their jobs. Yeah. Thank you. So I'm hopeful for Drysdale. Clearly, when he's healthy, he's much stronger. Go figure.
Exactly.
But I think the repetition and just being consistent again with time on ice and being in night after night is just going to help him as well. But yeah, when he's healthy, he's good. He makes a difference. So I'm curious to see how he does moving forward.
John Tortorella said that position is so important for just repetition and looks. Like, you need to get more looks. And he's still only 22 and learning a really tough position. He's not going to be this defensive force, but if he's playing offensively the way I think people hope he can, he's a difference maker and a guy that has a lot of upside. And I think we're seeing a motivated Drysdale for sure, Brooke, because I got the sense after his first game back when he was asked about the long layoff, missing 12 games, and how he took that, he kind of declined comment on just the length of it. I think that he was probably convinced he could have been cleared a little sooner, and the Flyers pumped the brakes.
Yeah.
And held him out a little longer than maybe he wanted. That's just speculation, but I just got the sense by reading his body language and him declining the comment.
Yeah.
And maybe that motivated him. Maybe he realized some other guys are playing well, and when I get back there, I need to
earn my spot.
And a little motivation is never a bad thing for a player. And he seems like a driven guy. Like when he's on the ice, he's playing with some conviction, and like a guy that knows he needs to stay in the lineup. And I think that's been a good thing. So we'll see where it all goes. A lot of young players, Brooke, playing pretty well for the Flyers. but they got to keep things going. They are still broke, just 13, 12, and 4. It's not like they have all the answers, but they are definitely playing better. And I think the performance that they had after a 3-game skid was real promising in the sense that they left no doubt. It wasn't just a lot of good, but a lot of bad. It was a very, very overall complete game that I think they need to build on it now.
Yeah, they squashed the losing streak, and I
Yeah.
think that is the best thing, where it's not like they squeezed out a win last minute. And, like, they controlled this game. They never let up. You had multiple people contributing top to bottom, offensively, defensively, great goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the best way to turn something around is to have a complete win, because it doesn't fall back to just one person saved the game, one person won the game for them. And while everyone individually is building up this confidence, this team is continuously building on this chemistry, and that combination, with more reps, is just going to be really good. Good is the word of the day. Sometimes it's that simple. It was
Indeed.
a good game.
Very good
Period.
game.
Done. Thanks for listening. No.
And we'll see if the Flyers can build on it. They have a home game now Thursday against the Red Wings. 7 p.m. puck drop, coverage at 6:30 p.m. on NBC Sports Philadelphia. A very good opportunity for the Flyers to build off of what they did their last game out. A really convincing win over the Blue Jackets. Brooke Destra, thank you so much. Great to see you. Good to chat with you on the Flyers Talk podcast.
Thank you, Jordan Hall.
Of
no
course.
one ever thanks you. Thank you,
I
Jordan.
appreciate you. A big thank you to Ben Berry, our podcast producer and guru, and Flyers fans. As always, thank you so much for listening to the latest Flyers Talk podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, please rate and listen. And we can't wait to talk to you next time.